July 26, 1974, 2:58 a.m., RCMP respond to a report from a person who had found an unresponsive body of a female on the Halifax North Commons across from the tennis courts off Cogswell Street. Upon arrival at the scene, victim 22-year-old HELEN DIANE KNICKLE was found deceased. She had been stabbed to death and dumped in some bushes not far from Highway 103. HELEN KNICKLE had been walking alone during the evening between the hours of 1 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. when she was attacked. Helen had been living at a Cook Street residence in Halifax at the time of her death. According to one Reddit user commenting on the case, Marnie VA902, it is very possible that Helen fell victim to a serial rapist, escalated to murder, that was convicted of 3 murders around 74 or 75. He was 16 when convicted, which means despite my searching, I cannot find a case record or any details. My father worked the case, which is how I know about it. Marnie VA902 goes on to state that the serial rapist had been attending university downtown, which gave him access to his victims, and that they had difficulty arresting him despite descriptions and sketches because they believed they were looking for a 20 to 23-year-old male. It wasn't until the subject's prom date fell victim to him that he would be arrested and prosecuted. Police believe the motive appears to be sexual, as her clothes had been pulled down. A woman had been molested by a man earlier in the week in the same area, and police had evidence the killer may have attempted attacks on other women that very night. Knickle was stabbed many times. The killer seemed to be in some kind of frenzy. There was evidence of strangulation as well. Superintendent Fitzgerald Fry said at the time that the violence indicated the murder was the work of a psychopath. Any person with information regarding the murder of HELEN DIANE KNICKLE should call the Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program at 1-888-710-9090. Sadie Mae Rogers was 80 years old in 1981 and lived alone in her home at 112 Cordova Street, Amherst, Nova Scotia. Rogers, who never married, worked much of her life as a housekeeper. She was last seen alive on Saturday evening, September 26, 1981. Neighbors grew worried after not seeing activity at the Rogers home for almost a week. On Friday, October 2, 1981, the Amherst PD was contacted. Police discovered Rogers' body inside her home. She had been stabbed multiple times. When cops checked her mailbox, they discovered that mail delivered on September 28th hadn't been retrieved. Several suspects would be interviewed by law enforcement, but no one was ever charged. In 2006 and 2007, someone sent local newspaper, the Amherst Daily News, anonymous pencil-written letters allegedly containing information regarding the circumstances surrounding Rogers' homicide. Investigators say they have received other tips over the years, but still seek help from the public. Rogers' niece, Dorothy Snowden, said in a 2006 interview, "To this day I keep asking myself, why would someone do something like this? She didn't deserve to die like that. She had every right to live." Rogers' family believed the perpetrator was someone who knew the house due to the way they entered. The murderer reportedly took the glass out of the front door, reached in, and unhooked the latch. The editor of the Amherst paper at the time said in a 2006 interview that robbery was suspected as the motive for the crime, but it's unclear whether any of Sadie Rogers' possessions or money were removed from her home. Any person with information regarding the murder of Sadie Mae Rogers should call the Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program at 1-888-710-9090. April 12, 1999. RCMP receive a report from the mother of 35-year-old Gregory Brushett stating that her son Gregory had not been seen since April 10, 1999. Gregory Brushett was living at 11 Dawson Street, Dartmouth at the time of his disappearance. The investigation uncovered that Mr. Brushett was a former member of an outlaw motorcycle club in Halifax. Gregory Brushett was last seen driving his maroon Honda Accord on Tacoma Drive in Dartmouth at 6 p.m. on April 10, 1999. He was also in a bar in Dartmouth earlier on the date he disappeared. The circumstances surrounding Gregory Brushett's disappearance are suspicious, and foul play is suspected by authorities. CBC News reported in 1999 that Gregory Samuel Brushett had reportedly been a member of the Hells Angels motorcycle gang. Brushett was supposed to be in Supreme Court in 1999 to face drug trafficking charges, but never showed up. According to a deal worked out between the Crown and Brushett's defense lawyer, Brushett was scheduled to admit guilt to 3 charges. Brushett, who was reportedly a full-patch member, was initially busted after an undercover agent infiltrated the gang. The court affidavit states that one Ray Smith made friends with the Hells Angels, dealt drugs for them, and regularly met with police to hand over information. Police believe the Halifax chapter may have had a hit list as part of a plan to regain control of the drug trade in the province at that time. Any person with information regarding the disappearance of Gregory Samuel Brushett should call the Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program at 1-888-710-9090. March 28, 1986, 27-year-old masseuse and married mother of 4, Anne MASSON, was discovered at 2468 Roby Street, Halifax, in a rooming house. Anne MASSON had been the victim of a brutal homicide, having been stabbed repeatedly. RCMP investigations uncovered that Masson left her house on Lemon Walk in Spryfield at 3 p.m. to visit a friend at the aforementioned rooming house. 25-year-old Josh Randall Borden would be charged with first-degree murder in Anne Masson's death, but the charge would be eventually dropped. Police state that Anne wasn't involved in the sex trade, but that they had some indications that she may have been involved in the local cocaine trade with her roommate. Rob Roberts of the Daily News reported that Masson and her husband were possibly Satanists. At their Lemon Walk home in Spryfield, photo albums were found containing photos of the couple in reportedly ritual satanic poses. One picture apparently featured Anne with a knife posed over her chest in ritual fashion. On the morning of March 29, 1986, Anne's friend Brenda Simon returned to the rooming house on Roby Street to discover the horrifying sight of Anne Masson laying at the foot of the bed, fully clothed with a dagger in her chest. She also had multiple stab wounds all over her body. Reportedly carved into the dagger was 666 and Satan. Masson's neck and wrists were cut in what papers described as ritual-like fashion. A meat cleaver and butter knife were also laying on the bed. Pieces of rope that had apparently been used to tie Anne's wrists were strewn onto the floor. Reportedly, on an oval mirror, the words, "Brenda, you're next," were written in lip liner. Any person with information regarding the murder of Anne-Marie Masson should call the Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program at 1-888-710-9090. October 16, 2010. Police respond to a report of a possible shooting at 39 Jarvis Lane, Halifax, Nova Scotia, When RCMP arrived, they discovered 21-year-old Donald Jermaine Stevenson suffering from a gunshot wound which would prove to be fatal. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Police believe there are individuals who have information that could result in an arrest and possible charges. Police said a man wearing a skull mask burst inside Stevenson's home at 8 p.m. and tragically shot Mr. Stevenson in front of his family. Neighbor Jay Thompson stated that he was horrified over the recent violence. Just anybody getting shot in front of their family or shot in front of friends, that's an awful thing, he said. Bullets don't have no names on it. A stray bullet can hit a child that's 4 or 5, Stevenson added. RCMP state that Stevenson's killer ran across Duffus Street onto Dartmouth Avenue and escaped in a silver SUV that left northbound, turning onto Rector Street in an unknown direction. Amy Redding, a resident of the Mulgrave Park apartment buildings where Stevenson was killed, said unrest is growing in the neighborhood. Somebody in the community said that there was a murder, and it was like, oh great, not another one, she told CBC News. It's just ridiculous. It's just stupid, she would go on to say. It was the second fatal shooting on Jarvis Lane in a 3-month period. Ryan White, also 21, was shot in July of 2010. Cale Gabriel would eventually receive a life sentence for this murder, having shot Ryan White for reportedly selling crack cocaine in the Mulgrave Park neighborhood that White considered his territory. Could these two murders be connected? Did Cale Gabriel also shoot Donald Stevenson, or were some other unknown person or persons responsible for this senseless homicide? Any person with information regarding the homicide of Donald Jermaine Stevenson should call the Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program at 1-888-710-9090. 2:50 a.m., September 1st, 2016. Ricky Walker is located in medical distress behind John McNeil Elementary School at 62 Lehman Drive, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. He was then transported to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. An autopsy confirmed Ricky Walker's death as a homicide. Ricky called 911 himself to report he'd been shot. Behind the school, there is an unlit walking path connecting Highfield Park Drive, where Ricky lived, to a parking circle that was searched by police in the aftermath. Ricky Walker, 48 years old, was a call center manager. He was well liked by co-workers and was known as the comedian in his close-knit family. Just blocks from where he was gunned down, Ricky Walker had once saved a life. In 1998, Walker rescued a man drowning in Albro Lake and received a St. John Ambulance Award for his selfless act. Ricky Walker's nephew and godson, Brandon Walker, had this to say about his much-loved uncle. He was just an overall great guy, whether it was to our family, very pleasant to his co-workers, everybody loved him. Brandon doesn't believe his uncle was targeted and wonders if he had been on a late-night coffee run. There wasn't any group that I could think of or an individual that felt hatred towards Ricky, Brandon also stated. For somebody that didn't drink, didn't do drugs, it's kind of hard to think of anyone that would want to do that to my uncle. There's an uncle of mine resting, hopefully, peacefully, knowing the person responsible is going to be found. Police have said little about the case, including whether it was a random act. It never gets easy, Brandon said. To not have him here now is heartbreaking. Brandon says his uncle was seen in downtown Dartmouth late in the morning on August 31st, 2016. He was last spotted on Highfield Park Drive at around 11 p.m. that night. Anyone with information about the murder of Ricky Walker should contact the Rewards program at 1-888-710-9090. December 12, 2009, 44-year-old Timothy John Kelly was found partially dressed and badly wounded outside 7051 Abbott Drive at about 10 p.m. and later passed away in hospital. RCMP are treating the case as a homicide, stated Constable Brian Palmeter, spokesman for the Halifax Regional Police. We do believe the man who did die at hospital did so as a result of multiple gunshot wounds, Palmeter added. Passers-by found Timothy Kelly bleeding on the sidewalk in the West End residential neighborhood located near the Halifax shopping center. He had wounds to his head, arms, and abdomen. There could be seen bullet holes in the side door of the house. There also was noticeable blood on the front step and walkway of the home, which had been decorated for Christmas. We don't believe anyone else was in the house, said Palmeter. We didn't have any other reports of the incident other than by people who happened to be going by this location and discovered the man, so certainly we'd be asking if anyone has information to contact police. Palmeter said Timothy John Kelly was known to police, but did not elaborate. Some residents in the area who gathered at the scene stated that Kelly was a good neighbor who kept his property tidy and helped one woman fix her car, though they also said police had visited his home before. Barbara Dacey, who lived across the street, said she'll miss her neighbor. It feels absolutely awful, and I don't feel as safe as I did before, she would go on to say. Police have no suspects in this case. After further investigation, police were able to determine that Kelly was in contact with friends and family earlier that night. Anyone with information about the murder of Timothy John Kelly should contact the Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program at 1-888-710-9090. August 28, 1999, 19-year-old Jason McCullough attended a house party on Joseph Street in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. After 1 a.m., Jason decided to leave the party and walk home to his parents' place on Russell Street, about 1 kilometer away from the party. He then used a shortcut through Highfield Park, a route he utilized many times before. At 1:30 a.m., while walking through the park, Jason was shot from near point-blank range in the back of the head, killing him instantly. Many residents in the area heard the gunshot and reported hearing footsteps running from the scene. At 2:30 a.m., RCMP with police dogs discovered Jason on a path between 100 and 104 Pinecrest Drive, just over 5 blocks from his home. Jason was not known to police and had never been involved with any criminal activity. Police believe Jason's homicide was a random act of violence. Jason was known by everyone to be a calm, collected, easygoing person. He was known to help his elderly neighbors with things like carrying groceries and snow removal in the winter. Former Halifax police investigator Tom Martin was on Jason's case until his retirement, and along with other RCMP, interviewed at least 250 people. Police eventually released composite sketches of 5 men who they believed may have been connected to the homicide. The Daily News would go on to publish the names of 4 of the suspects that were in the sketches. They were Lloyd Douglas Ormond, Stephen Meekins, Christian Marsman, and Tyrone Downey. All 4 men lived in the area where the killing occurred. They became suspects as Ormond, Marsman, and Downey had broken into a home only a few blocks away from where Jason was killed. Downey pointed a handgun during the robbery, and all 3 would later be arrested and pleaded guilty to charges of robbery. Not only was Jason McCullough known to be a kind and caring person, he was also a chief scout with Scouts Canada and volunteered with the Boys and Girls Club in Dartmouth. He loved music, had just graduated high school, and had been accepted to attend Dalhousie University. When asked why his son may have been targeted, his father Alan stated, "I don't think there was a reason, but some scumbag knows, and there is other people who know about this scumbag." The park where Jason was murdered beside is now known as Jason McCullough Memorial Park. Anyone with information about the murder of Jason McCullough should contact the Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program at 1-888-710-9090. June 26, 2005, 30-year-old Shen TSOU, who went by Andy TSOU, mysteriously and tragically vanished in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Andy TSOU resided in Richmond, BC. Last seen in Halifax, police say he knew numerous people in and around the Halifax area. TSOU had been staying at the Halifax Casino Hotel and other private residences before his disappearance. He had a room booked at the hotel the night of June 26, 2005, but never arrived, according to Halifax police. 5 days later, a family member reported TSOU missing to authorities. The white 2005 Pontiac Grand Prix he was driving while in Halifax has never been found. It is never too late to come forward, and the smallest piece of information may be just what is needed to progress the investigation, Halifax police said in a statement. The Department of Justice website indicates that on June 30th, 2005, police received a complaint from the wife of Shen TSOU, who reported that her husband, Shen TSOU, had not been seen since June 26, 2005. After researching this very sad story, I found it unfortunate just how little information is available about Andy TSOU, his life, and his disappearance. I find it terribly unsettling that a young person in the prime of their lives could just disappear off the face of the earth without leaving a trace, and it is equally bizarre that his vehicle has never surfaced, despite Nova Scotia being a relatively small province. For now, what happened to Andy TSOU will remain a mystery like so many others that leaves family and friends to grieve, yet forever wonder, never getting any answers. At this point in time, Andy TSOU will remain known as the man who had a room booked at the Halifax Casino Hotel, but never arrived. Anyone with information about the disappearance of Shen TSOU should contact the Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program at 1-888-710-9090. October 8, 1997, 32-year-old Rachel Joy McQuarrie was reported missing. She had been living at 234 Victoria Road, Dartmouth, an apartment near Russell Street, not far from where murder victim Brenda Way's body was discovered. Although she was reported missing on October 8th, the last time anyone had seen her was 2 weeks prior on September 27, 1997. Reportedly, investigations into Rachel McQuarrie's disappearance led police to interview Margaret Robin Elizabeth Hartrick, who would herself be the victim of homicide in September of 1998, which then led to the conviction of Glenn Assoun for the killing of Brenda Way. After 17 years in prison, Glenn Assoun's conviction would be overturned, and Brenda Way's case is now considered an unsolved homicide. Robin Hartrick would be tragically murdered before Glenn Assoun's first trial, in a bizarre twist that just adds more mystery to their story. In 2019, the Nova Scotia Supreme Court revealed that Canadian serial killer Michael Wayne McGray was the prime suspect in the murder of Brenda Way before the wrongful conviction. Could McGray be responsible for both Brenda Way and Rachel McQuarrie's murders? Police had always suspected that missing Rachel McQuarrie had been the victim of homicide. She had never been located, or apparently there was no trace of her using any credit cards, telephone, hydro, so on and so. As a result of that, the McQuarrie file became one of our investigations, testified police investigator Stephen Maxwell. On June 13, 2002, McQuarrie's skeletal remains were located in the woods by a construction worker who was working on the twinning of Highway 101 near Stillwater at the Mount Uniacke exit. Reportedly, all three women, Rachel McQuarrie, Margaret Robin Hartrick, and Brenda Way, were all involved in the sex trade. Given the connection between all three victims, is it possible that all three were killed by the same person? Were they all the victims of serial killer Michael Wayne McGray? Or, as Robin Hartrick indicated to police regarding Brenda Way, was Glenn Assoun actually involved after all? Whatever happened, these three killings are sadly just three more homicides in the grim history of the murder and abuse of Nova Scotia's sex trade workers. Any person with information about the murder of Rachel Joy McQuarrie should call the Rewards for Major Unsolved Crimes program at 1-888-710-9090. You've been watching True Crime Mind Trap, and I would also like to thank all the viewers and subscribers, as well as thank everyone for their comments. I apologize about the audio mistakes in the first couple of unsolved videos. I have worked since to correct those errors for future videos, and for anyone interested, click the link in the description below to visit the True Crime Mind Trap Patreon page. All contributions will go directly into creating more content. Thanks, and be safe.